Maybe you shouldn't show up at your father's birthday party this year. It would be embarrassing. My mother's words froze on the cell phone screen like a final verdict. My name is Max, I'm 32 years old, and I live in a cozy apartment 50 minutes from Boston. I've always been the odd son out of the family, the one with the plain clothes, always glued to his laptop, co-founder of a biotech startup that no one really understands. Your sister's boyfriend will be there. He's CFO of a multinational, very articulate. His discussions about work can make everyone uncomfortable. I felt my chest tighten as I stared at the message. I instantly translated, "Your work is too complicated for us to explain. You embarrass the family." My sister Sarah, 3 years my senior, had always been the perfect daughter. Beautiful, elegant, charismatic, the kind of person who brightens up any room. Meanwhile, I was just a shadow in the family portraits, the one nobody remembered what I did. Oh, Max? He works with something in biotechnology. That's how I was introduced, as a footnote in my sister's brilliant story. I had built a company from scratch with 3 college friends, closed million-dollar deals, spent nights developing life-saving technologies, but that was never enough to impress them. "If you insist on coming, don't call me Dad," were my father's last words before hanging up the phone that night. I stood paralyzed, staring at the white wall of my apartment. The cup of coffee in my hand had gone cold. For 2 years I had been sending money to my parents every month, paying electricity bills, water bills, internet bills, almost $6,000 a month, plus extras when they said the fridge broke or the car needed repairs. "Sarah is struggling after changing jobs. If you could help, that would be great," my mother would say. And I helped silently, as if it were my duty. That night, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I canceled all the automatic payments. No alarms, no warnings, just silence. Just as I had always existed in my family. What my parents didn't know, what no one in my family ever asked, was that I wasn't just any employee at a biotech company. I was the co-founder and COO of Pacific Genomics, one of the most promising healthcare startups on the East Coast. As I hung up my phone, I looked out the window at the trees swaying slightly in the spring breeze. A thought crossed my mind: this rejection could be the release I never knew I needed. My father's birthday came quickly. I didn't call, I didn't send a card. Not out of revenge, but because I couldn't pretend any longer. At 5 p.m., my cell phone started vibrating with messages. My mother: "Max, why has the power gone out? Can you check for us?" My father: "No water, no internet. Call the companies. Your mom's freaking out." Sarah: "The internet's out, the guests are arriving and mom's almost crying. What's going on?" What they didn't know was that my silence wasn't a planned revenge. It was the natural consequence of finally accepting that I had never been part of that family in the way I should have been. Something bigger was about to happen, something that even I couldn't predict. While checking my work emails that evening, a name on the list of employee transfers from New Jersey to Boston made me stop: Thomas Reynolds. Sarah's boyfriend. Current position: Finance Director of the New Jersey branch. New position: Finance Director of the Boston office. Approver: Max Warren, co-founder. I let out a small laugh. The world really was smaller than I had imagined. The man my family was trying to impress, the reason I was excluded from my own father's birthday party, was about to become my direct subordinate. And the best part? I didn't have to do anything at all. Fate was already writing the perfect script. If you've ever felt that no matter how hard you try, you'll never be enough for your own family, this story will show you that sometimes silence speaks louder than any revenge. Don't forget to sign up to find out what happened when my sister's boyfriend finally found out who I really was. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. While I was reviewing the financial reports, a notification popped up on my screen: "New employee, Thomas Reynolds, transfer approved to Boston." I laughed softly. The man my parents had excluded me from the birthday party for was about to report directly to me. I hadn't planned it, it was the universe conspiring in my favor. My phone vibrated again. More angry messages from my family. "Max, mom's crying. The guests are coming and we have no power or water. How could you?" I didn't answer. For years, my family only came to me when they needed something. Never a "how are you?" Never a "we're proud of you." Just, "Max, the fridge is broken. Max, I need money for Sarah's dental treatment. Max, can you pay for our internet? Thomas Reynolds arrived punctually at 9 a.m. Tall, good-looking, impeccable suit, exactly the kind of man my family would love to introduce to the neighbors. The kind of man I would never be in their eyes. Mr. Warren, it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person, he said, extending his hand with a confident smile. Likewise, Thomas. Welcome to Pacific Genomics, I replied, keeping my expression neutral. I hope your move from New Jersey has been a smooth one. He looked momentarily confused. We've met before? Briefly, at a conference 6 months ago. You probably don't remember. What he didn't know, what no one in my family knew, was that I had already heard all about him. Sarah wouldn't stop talking about him on the rare occasions she called me, always comparing our lives. Thomas has just bought a new Audi Max. What do you drive anyway? Still that old Honda. Shortly afterwards, I received a call from my Aunt Sharon, the only person in the family who still had any contact with me. Max, what's going on? Your mother is panicking. Everyone's asking about you. Aunt Sharon, remember when Dad told me I shouldn't go to the party because it would be embarrassing? That I shouldn't call him Dad if I insisted on showing up. Silence on the other end of the line. Max. I didn't know that, she finally replied, her voice shaking. No one told me that part. Of course they didn't. They never tell you what they do to me. As we spoke, I heard voices in the background, my mother shouting that I was just having a tantrum, and that no one would be so insensitive. Sarah saying that Thomas was coming and someone needed to solve the problem. That's when something completely unexpected happened. Thomas appeared in the frame of the video call. Nicole Warren? He asked, looking at the screen in surprise. The founder of Pacific Genomics? The silence that fell over the room was deafening. I could hear the clink of cutlery frozen in mid-air. Yes, Thomas, I replied calmly. It's me. I saw Sarah's face turn pale. My parents were completely paralyzed. Is she your principal? My mother asked Thomas, her voice trembling. Thomas nodded slowly. She's my direct boss. She's the one who approved my transfer to Boston. Another long silence. This time, I could almost hear the pieces falling into place in their minds. For years, they thought I was just some employee, someone with a job too complicated to explain. They never imagined that I was building a successful company, let alone that Sarah's perfect boyfriend would need my approval to advance his career. I hope the party is going well, I said before hanging up, without waiting for a reply. That evening, messages started to arrive. First Sarah, furious. Did you know all along? Why didn't you say anything? Thomas is embarrassed. Mom's crying. Is that what you wanted? Then my father, in an authoritative tone, Max, call the services immediately. Your mother is devastated. The last was from Thomas, surprisingly respectful. Mr. Warren, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I didn't know about your connection with the family until today. I'd like to talk to you tomorrow in the office, if possible. I put the phone aside and looked out of the window. The city lights of Boston shone against the night sky. For years, I had lived in the shadows of my own family, invisible except when they needed me. Now finally they saw me. And the most ironic thing? I didn't have to do anything at all. The truth had revealed itself, in the most unexpected way possible. What I didn't know was that the revelation on my father's birthday was only the beginning. What would happen next would change the dynamics of my family forever. The next morning, the mood in the office was different. Employees looked at me curiously as I walked down the corridors. News travels fast, especially when it involves the boss's sister's boyfriend. Thomas knocked on my door shortly after lunch. His expression was a mixture of embarrassment and respect. Mr. Warren. Max, he began, hesitantly. About yesterday. You don't have to explain anything, Thomas, I replied, keeping my tone professional. Family and professional matters are separate here. He nodded, visibly relieved. I didn't know you were Sarah's brother. She never mentioned that your brother co-founded Pacific Genomics. She didn't know, I replied simply. We spent a few minutes discussing the project he would be supervising. I realized that Thomas was competent, dedicated, and above all, seemed to be a decent person. This made it all the more ironic. As he was leaving, he stopped at the door. You know, Your family seemed genuinely surprised yesterday. Sarah is, well, she's pretty shaken up. I nodded, showing no emotion. I'm sure she is. In the evening, while I was going over some reports at home, I received an email from Thomas. The subject was simple: resignation. Max. After reflecting on recent events, I have made the difficult decision to end my relationship with Sarah. I cannot continue with someone who participated, even indirectly, in the unfair treatment you received. I also realized that it would be complicated to maintain a proper professional relationship under these circumstances. I deeply respect your professionalism and how you have handled all this. If you prefer, I can request a transfer to another office. Yours sincerely, Thomas Reynolds. I stared at the screen for a few minutes. I hadn't expected that. I didn't ask Thomas to break up with Sarah. I didn't plan any of this. The truth just came out, and people made their own choices. My phone started ringing. It was Sarah. I ignored it. Minutes later, a flood of messages. Max, you need to talk to Thomas. He broke up with me. This is all your fault. How could you do this to me? Thomas was all I wanted. If you say something to him, maybe he'll come back. The last message made me pause. Please, Max. I'm begging you. I've never asked you for anything. I laughed humorlessly. Never asked for anything? Just thousands of dollars in paid bills, years of silent financial support, always hoping for recognition that never came. I just replied, Thomas made his own decision as an adult. It's none of my business. The next morning, the bombshell, my parents showed up in the lobby of my office. My father, red with anger, my mother with eyes swollen from crying. Max, we need to talk, my father demanded when I met them in reception. I'm in the middle of a working day, I replied calmly. Your work, my father spat out the words. The work you've hidden from us for years. Several employees stopped to watch. My assistant gave me a worried look. If you want to talk, you'll have to wait until the end of working hours, I replied, keeping my voice low. Or we could schedule it for the weekend. Sarah is devastated, my mother intervened. You have to talk to Thomas. No, I don't, I replied firmly. And I suggest you leave now, before this becomes even more awkward. My father approached me, pointing his finger in my face. You've always been selfish, Max. Always thinking only of yourself. That's when Thomas appeared in the lobby, carrying some documents. He stopped when he saw the scene, hesitated for a moment, and then approached. Mr. and Mrs. Warren, he said formally. With all due respect, I think you should reconsider what you're saying. Your son has built an admirable company and leads it with integrity. Something that, unfortunately, I can't say about how you've treated him. My father paled. My mother began to cry harder. Thomas, she began. My decision about Sarah is final, he interrupted gently. And it has nothing to do with Max. It has to do with what I saw at that birthday party and what I found out afterwards. Now, if you'll excuse me. He left, leaving a deafening silence in the lobby. My parents finally realized that not only had they lost control of me, but they had also lost face in front of everyone. The perfect image they had worked so hard to maintain was shattered. Maybe we should talk another time, I suggested calmly. When you're more composed. They left without saying another word. In the evening, sitting in my apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened, I felt a strange sense of lightness. The truth had finally come out, not through some elaborate revenge, but simply by allowing me to be who I really was. What I didn't know was that the real test was yet to come. 3 days later, I found my parents waiting outside my apartment. My mother was holding a small gift bag. My father kept his arms crossed, his face a mixture of wounded pride and discomfort. Can we talk? My mother asked, her voice trembling. I opened the door and invited them in. Silence hung heavy as we served coffee in the cozy living room that they had never visited before, even though I had lived there for almost 4 years. About the birthday party, my father began, sniffling. I said some things I shouldn't have. I nodded slightly. There was no anger in me, just a strange sense of clarity. Sarah is devastated, my mother added, as if that explained everything. Thomas was perfect for her. Thomas made his own decision, I replied calmly. Just as you made the decision to exclude me from your life. My father fidgeted uncomfortably. Maybe we've been a bit unfair. But you're doing so well now. Your company looks impressive. It's always been impressive, I replied. You just never asked. My mother opened her handbag and took out some papers. I recognized them immediately: bank statements, overdue bills, a mortgage notice. Actually, we were wondering if you could help us with some bills. Maybe $2,000 a month? It's not much for someone in your position. I looked at the papers and then at them, a slight laugh escaping my lips without any bitterness. What will Sarah contribute? I asked. My mother hesitated. Well, she's not in a very good financial situation right now, especially after her breakup with Thomas. I see, I interrupted gently. So Sarah can't be pressured, but I can. It's not like that, my father protested, but his eyes didn't meet mine. I took a deep breath and put my coffee cup on the table. I have a counter-proposal. If you really need financial help, I'm willing to contribute $1,000 a month, but with a few conditions. First, Sarah will contribute the same amount. Secondly, we'll sign a legal contract stipulating that when you two leave, the house will be mine. My father's face immediately reddened. You're putting conditions on helping your own parents? After all we've done for you. I remained calm, looking him straight in the eye. They're not conditions, Dad. They're healthy limits. I've spent almost $16,000 in the last 2 years paying your bills, without a single thank you. If you want to continue receiving my help, things need to change. My father stood up abruptly, throwing the papers on the floor. Let's go, Martha. I'm not going to stand here being insulted by my own son. My mother hesitated, glancing between the two of us before standing up reluctantly. I walked them to the door in silence. There was no anger, no resentment, just the clear understanding that this was the end of a chapter. Over the next few weeks, I received no more messages or calls. No apology, no attempt at reconciliation. It was as if an invisible cord had finally been cut, freeing me from expectations that I would never be able to meet. Thomas continued working at the company, always maintaining a strictly professional relationship. He never mentioned Sarah again, and I respected his discretion. Some stories are best left in the past. 6 months later, I received an invitation to a cousin's wedding. I hesitated before confirming my attendance, knowing that I would be meeting the whole family. When I arrived at the ceremony, wearing a simple but elegant suit, I noticed the curious looks, the hushed whispers. Sarah was there, forcing smiles, visibly uncomfortable with my presence. My parents kept their distance, exchanging only formal greetings. But something had changed, not in them but in me. I was no longer looking for approval. I was no longer striving to be seen. I could see myself clearly now, and that was enough. Later that day, my Aunt Sharon approached me as I was watching the sunset outside the salon. You look different, she commented. I am different, I replied with a genuine smile. Lighter, she observed. As if I'd left a weight behind. I nodded. I've discovered that family isn't just defined by blood, Aunt Sharon. It's defined by respect, consideration, and mutual love. Sometimes, setting boundaries is the greatest act of love we can offer, both to ourselves and to others. Looking back now, I realize that I never planned revenge. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I simply stopped hurting myself to please people who never valued my sacrifices. My story is not about victory or defeat. It's about learning that your value is not determined by the opinion of others, even when those others are your own family. It's about understanding that sometimes dignified silence speaks louder than any angry shout. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. And remember, the best revenge against those who belittle you is not to make them suffer, but to live well with your head held high, without needing their approval. If this story has touched you in any way, subscribe to the channel for more stories about self-discovery, healthy boundaries, and the true meaning of family. After all, sometimes the family we choose is truer than the one we were born into.